What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. We have some madness to talk about. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Do not worry, there will not be a spoiler in this review. Spoiler-free, we will be talking spoilers this weekend, so come back to this channel then. We'll have a special guest in that video, the Flick Pick himself. But right now, I want to talk about this film and tell you whether or not this movie is going to live up to the expectations or fall short. Is it madness? Let's talk about it. Dr. Stephen Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens the doorway to the multiverse, including alternate versions of himself, whose threat to humanity is too great for the combined forces of Strange, Wong, and Wanda Maximoff. This movie is rated PG-13. It features intense sequences of violence, action, frightening images, and some language, but I do want to focus on those frightening images to start out this review. Really just the Sam Raimi style of it all, and that is one thing, I think that was the talk of the town for a long time. Is it what he brought to the original Spider-Man trilogy, or is it more Evil Dead? This may or may not shock you, I don't know, but this movie feels more like Evil Dead than it does the original Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. There are elements of horror in here, and I'm not sitting back saying it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. You'll see people be like, come on, man, it wasn't that scary. But for a franchise that is normally calling for families to take their kids out to the theater, the imagery here that I mentioned in that intro may or may not scare them more so than any imagery we've seen in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Now, there are other elements that will keep you on the edge of your seat, especially if you are a comic book fan. The nods, the Easter eggs, and really hearkening back to what made Doctor Strange from the comic books, and that is the imagery. And we'll talk about the camera work, cinematography, all of that, but I'm talking about the sequence in the first Doctor Strange when he's flying through space and you have all of the hands and then the baby hands and the creepiness, the fight between Doctor Strange and Thanos in Infinity War. All of that is combined but taken up another level, another notch in this film to create for some sequences, whether it be an action set piece or the really simple and subtle elements of Doctor Strange in the midst of battle. He does something we've never seen before. Never thought we would see Doctor Strange do it on the big screen. He does it. I'm sitting back going, is Sam Raimi just a way bigger Doctor Strange fan than I was expecting? Apparently so, because what he includes in this film straight out of the comics is so impressive. Now, it goes beyond Doctor Strange. We start to get into Scarlet Witch territory. One of the surprising things about this movie is it's not just a Doctor Strange sequel. We're not just dealing with the fallout of Spider-Man. This is a straight-up 100% sequel to WandaVision. She is just as big of a character as Strange. Now, I can't dive into her exact arc or what happens with her character. We'll save that for this weekend. But as of now, I can just tell you this. Elizabeth Olsen's performance is phenomenal. They make some decisions with her character that were a bit rushed, and some moments where I didn't fully feel the weight of the moment, and I think that may have been because of the script as opposed to the direction and the performance, which were both fantastic. I just did not fully get that aftermath deliver, what happened to WandaVision, the fallout. And I think that's the difference between television and a movie. It's crazy to say this, but I feel as if Multiverse of Madness could have and maybe even should have been a bit longer. There were some cuts made. There were some things that were clearly taken out of this film, left somewhere in the midst of the editing room. And I'm saying to myself, I wish that was here. I wish we would have gotten one or two moments with this character. My biggest issue with the movie, and we're just going to veer into negative territory super quick, is what I just said that is mostly happening in the first act of the movie. We get a villain reveal. We're introduced to 2 or 3 new characters. It's all happening at once. It is this fast-paced rush of an experience, and by the time we get to the end of the first act, it feels like we've already watched a full movie and it's only been like 35 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, if we could have spread this out over like an hour or so just to have more time to feel the emotional stakes, because the emotions are so high with this film. I'm just not sure the script gave it time to sit and allow the audience to feel the impact of that moment. That's probably my biggest criticism with the film. What I believe other criticisms are going to be, and a common occurrence that I heard tonight walking out of my screening, is the fact that it may not deliver on that multiversal madness on the scale, on the level that some people are going to want. And I think expectation could be a killer here. It all comes down to, what do you want out of this film? Do you want it to be this jam-packed thing where it's cameo after cameo, character after character? Or do you want a more simplistic, subtle, and at points heartfelt story that can come across a bit messy at times, but I found so much to latch onto there, especially when we get past that first act and we're really diving into our characters. The second act of this movie is pure insanity, right? But it's more contained than I expected it to be, and once everything plays itself out, you start getting into the emotions of these characters, and you really begin to feel that. A lot of that comes from the performances. Like I said, Olsen is outstanding, but we can't forget about the star of the show here, Benedict Cumberbatch, who's doing so much right, and I feel like it's going to be overlooked. I feel like the spectacle of the film, and Sam Raimi, and we'll talk about those visuals, I promise, but we can't forget about Cumberbatch, what he's doing, and we've seen the trailer. We know there may or may not be more than one version, but the fact that he and Olsen, they're delivering on those performances as our leads, and this supporting cast plays so well with them, even though I'm struggling to get a full feel of what this movie's trying to be at points, it's like I'm seeing the diamond in the rough as it's playing itself out, and I'm thinking to myself what everyone's going to say in their review. Everyone is going to say, well, that's not the movie I expected. And that's just the way it is. It's going to disappoint some people. Other people, they're going to say, oh, that's kind of nice they didn't do that. You know who I wanted the star of the show to be? Sam Raimi, and he was. I talked about the tone, I talked about the fact that it was veering into horror territory, but let's go a step further. Let's talk about the cinematography and the shots, the camera angles, the fades, the transitions, certain set pieces where I'm sitting back, it feels like every 5 minutes and going, this is a Sam Raimi movie. This is full on exactly what I expected a movie directed by Sam Raimi in the MCU to look like, but it felt like the handcuffs were off. No constraints. He said, I'm going to take this story and do whatever I want with it visually, and the visuals are spectacular. This is one complaint I have about plenty of movies in the MCU, movies that I adore, films that I love, but I'm thinking to myself, there's just not a distinct style. This film exudes style. It breathes life into this genre in a way that is so impressive. I'm talking visually, I'm talking stylistically, the combination of genres. So even though I wasn't enamored by the story, and occasionally it becomes overly convoluted, especially in the first 20 minutes of the film, as it works itself out and you learn more about what this film is trying to be, I was just enjoying myself. I was having so much fun. I wasn't paying as much attention to the problems that I had in the first act of the movie. I'm sitting there going, it's just different from any other movie in the MCU. Not everyone's going to like that, but I found it to be pretty impressive. Austin, you going to give me something, man? You going to tell me about the story? This is so hard because almost everything about the story is a spoiler, so I can't really go into any sort of detail. I'll be doing that this weekend in a spoiler review, in a tier list. We're going to have so many special Marvel videos on this channel. Come back, stay tuned. I want to say thank you guys for being here, and if you enjoy this content, if you like this video, be sure to drop that like down below. It helps the algorithm. Multiverse of Madness keeps Strange at the center of its story, but Olsen's Scarlet Witch is the heart and soul. Sam Raimi's footprint is all over this film as it exudes his style from start to finish. There is a lot at play, but it may not be the madness some are expecting. In that way, the story, you could say, plays it safe, and maybe they didn't fully utilize the vast multiverse like they could have, but I got a lot of Sam Raimi goodness in its place, and I'm going an 80% for a very different entry in the MCU. If you are a fan of Sam Raimi, even before his Spider-Man trilogy, you're going to get some pretty creative things out of this film. And of course, those moments that are going to make fans happy. I am losing my voice. I want to thank my brother Josh for going on this road trip with me all the way to see this movie. 6 hours in the car. Poor guy had to deal with me. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and hit the notification bell for more stuff.